So what was it like working with Blake Lively on the set of It Ends With Us? Justin Baldoni dropped a number of text messages with crew members detailing just how difficult Blake Lively was to work with. Baldoni claims that since day one of production, she tried to push her weight. She would undermine their wardrobe director and make outfit choices of her own. And rather than showing up to her scheduled fittings, she drove up the budget by having them shuttle all of the clothes to her so that she could try them on. She would often rewrite her lines daily, and apparently she was having Ryan Reynolds, who has no official credit on the film, help her rewrite some of the scenes, which was unbeknownst to Baldoni and the screenwriter. She allegedly also inserted herself into the editing room, would have pages of notes, would have the editors fly to her so she could continue making revisions for her own cut. And when she was unhappy, she had the editor and a composer fired from the film. And even though they tested her edit versus Baldoni's edit in front of audiences, and Baldoni's edit ranked higher, she demanded that Sony release her version of the film. She even tried to bully her way into getting a PGA mark, which is a coveted credit for producers, which Baldoni and Jamie Heath were absolutely against. So much so that they still wrote the letter, but also sent a copy to their attorney saying that this letter was written and signed under duress. Because anytime Blake didn't get her way, she would halt production, she would threaten to quit, and she would threaten to not market the film.
One thing that I keep replaying in my head about the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni situation is that Blake wholeheartedly believed that she had the entire population convinced, and she was like, yes, like, we totally got them. And then Justin just pulling the rug out from underneath her, and he's like, gotcha, bitch! And she's like, no. And you know she's just like so upset and so miserable right now, thinking that she had won everybody over, but Justin came in with the Uno reverse and he was like, no. Now it's funny because like there are theories that she's like in love with him and that's why she did it. I think she was in love with him, no, but do I think that there's something to that? Absolutely I do, because there's just no way that any normal person would react like this over something like this. Like, especially in Hollywood, you would think that they would have worked with so many different scenarios. I don't know. There's just something weird about it. I absolutely think she had a crush on him. I think she did not get what she wanted out of it. And so she just used her cards. And also, what's also really weird to me is people are always like, oh my God, like her and Ryan, they're the dream couple. What? They've always seemed like such a weird couple to me. So I think people forget that Hollywood too, like they're so different. They don't care if they have a family involved. If they start crushing on someone, they'll be willing to tear their family apart in a goddamn minute. So I think that there is something definitely to that. I do. And I think she didn't get her way and she's used to getting her way. But what I do find really interesting is that Justin wants to go to trial. He's like, yeah, absolutely not. Like, you're not going to keep doing this. And he totally like played chess and he said like checkmate, like he's like, no, we aren't doing all this. And I just can't help but think Blake is just like absolutely miserable right now.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Clevy, and today we are diving into what everyone seems to be talking about, the Blake and Justin situation. Oh my God. I have not a lot. When I say a lot to say about it, because oh my God, the clips that have been surfacing every single day are pointing us to fact. Now, has anyone else noticed that the way Blake tried to take over this movie from Justin sounds almost the exact way Ryan, her husband, took over the creative control for Deadpool? Oh yes. Like, their tactics are almost too similar. Like, for an actor to take over a franchise from directors who have worked years on it, or even own the rights, is just something I've been wondering. A certain sexual harassment claim didn't even sit well with me after Johnny Depp and Amber's Heard trial, although I've never followed any of the initial backlash back in 2016. I think that people would have learned to wait before jumping the gun this time, but no. When I brought this up, so many people were so quick to point out all the text messages as proof, and I was like, listen, those seem really cherry-picked and out of context, and I'd like to see the messages our PR team were writing and what they were saying about him. I also feel like as Spite she showed in real time, we're being interviewed by that Norwegian reporter was the real her. And that the way she got Acosta to ignore the reporter with her so easily was the first thing I thought of when the cast turned against Justin.
I don't know why anybody in Hollywood would ever want to work with these two again. Honestly, after reading all 80-some pages of Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against the New York Times, they lay it out, step by step, how she really did hijack this film. I'm just saying, if I was a director or a producer, I don't know why I would invite these two to be part of my creative endeavor now that I've seen that they are capable of hijacking a movie. Truly. And I know that reading a lawsuit sounds boring, but I promise this one is not. It's not like riddled with legal jargon that you can't understand. It's very easy to follow. And there's a whole timeline of how she was able to essentially take over control so many aspects of the movie, starting with her wardrobe. That's how we ended up with this monstrosity, in my opinion. This looks awful. I know it, you know it, we all know it. Everybody except for Blake knows it, okay? The lawsuit even states that prior to filming even beginning for this movie, most of the wardrobe shopping was already done. All the time, effort, energy, and money, okay? Their whole budget was mostly already spent. And then she comes in and she's like, I don't really care. I want to wear what I want to wear. And then from then on, it really does seem as though they were playing whack-a-mole with her demands, because every single time she wanted something new, they would acquiesce to her because, according to the lawsuit, she would say like, oh, I don't really know if I want to promote this film, or I'm not going to show up to set. Or at one point, after they had filmed half the movie and sunk millions of dollars into it, she was like, you might need to recast Lily Bloom, knowing damn well that if they had to do that, the movie was done. They weren't going to be able to afford to do that and also continue filming and finishing everything. And I know most people will say like, oh, well, based on her legal complaint, it really does seem like a hostile work environment. But the Justin Baldoni lawsuit, I swear, it goes like line for line of her complaint and they respond to it. And it does seem as though the text messages that were in her complaint were very much so cherry-picked and perhaps even altered to make them sound different or worse than they really were, because his lawsuit contains the whole conversation, and honestly, it really does change the tone of a lot of those texts. In the text messages that the New York Times posted, they even removed an emoji that signifies pretty much universally that the person is being sarcastic. Now, why would they do that? Because it did change the whole tone of the sentence. Anyways, I do think this is a very nuanced topic. There's a lot to be said, and I'm sure there was fault on both sides, absolutely. But my main point in this video is that I just don't know why people would want to work with them again, because, quite frankly, I don't even think they're that good of actors. I think that they are the definition of mediocrity. He's been playing a different version of Van Wilder since he played Van Wilder, and she's been doing the same thing with Serena van der Woodsen. I personally don't think that these two have any range, but I do think that they have really big egos and really deep pockets, and they're willing to do whatever they want to get what they want, and I do think that they want the rights to It Ends With Us and the second film or book, which is what It Starts With Us. Now, reading through Justin's lawsuit and comparing it to the complaints made by Blake in her legal complaint, it does seem as though some of the things that she was upset about, she may have taken out of context because they pretty much directly rebuttal everything in the complaint. But also, we don't know, we weren't there. But basically, my main point in this whole video is that I do think that these two are capable of hijacking somebody's creative endeavor. I really do, and I don't know why anybody else would give them the opportunity.
It's hilarious to me that Justin immediately came out with a legitimate book full of receipts, almost as if he knew this was coming along. And there is this video I watched yesterday where he did something amazing for his fan, and I cried yesterday, and I'm like, nah. This cannot be the person Blake is saying all of these things about. You guys, let's watch it.
I was told I had to watch
Baldoni,
this one.
if you see this video, I am a huge fan of you.
Oh.
Your movies are so inspiring. If everyone can tag Justin Baldoni to this video,
Tag Justin.
it would mean the world to me. I have been trying to reach out to you for the longest. I have everything of you. A couple days ago, I received a message from Justin, and he told me he's been following my journey. He would like for me and my husband to be his guest. I cannot wait to meet him in person.
This woman is a fighter.
Gabby and I met via TikTok.
because for some reason, she put me on her bucket list. And I still think you can do much better. I can't help but feel in the middle of all of this celebration that this stuff is all fleeting. And Gabby just told me the doctors didn't give her that much time, that she's not giving up. And then I thought to myself, wow, one of my best friends wrote this song about not giving up for my first movie, 5 Feet Apart, for Claire Washington, and it happens to be here. So I thought we could all sing this song together.
Yes! I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath. Even when it takes nothing
So I wanted to weigh in on the Blake Lively drama as someone that has worked with her and someone that's worked with directors in Hollywood for over 10 years. I worked at a talent agency and then a management company. And I specifically, at one time, actually worked with Blake Lively. So I want to color in what's going on here. For context, when I worked with Blake, it was one day she was doing press for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. This was end of May, beginning of June 2005. I worked on a show that was on the Fuse channel, which was like a local competitor to MTV in New York City. After that, I went on to work in Hollywood at CAA, which is WME's competitor, and then management companies where I worked with directors. So I actually do have a lot of perspective here. In addition to, I grew up on set. I was a local Nepo baby because my parents both worked in sports TV. So I grew up going to set all the time. So when I was interning at the Fuse channel, as I said, this was 2005, end of May, beginning of June, she was doing press for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants with 3 of the 4 girls. I don't remember who exactly was there, but it was Blake, who was actually terrible and made me cry. So as an intern, we were allowed on set, but and as someone who grew up on set, you don't speak on set. It is quiet on the set because obviously the people with the microphones need to be heard, right? So your job was to just fetch things that various people needed. That day, it was my job to hand out these little water bottles to anyone who needed them. As they were walking to set from their green room, I had to pass them in this extremely narrow hallway, literally necessitating me to go like this against a wall so they could get by. Obviously, they're the priority. They need to get to set. I don't speak to them because, again, being an intern and also just growing up in the industry, you're seen, not heard, right? When you're not talent, you just do what you have to do. Show concludes, and me and all the interns are then brought upstairs for an emergency intern meeting, and they proceed to yell at us for being unprofessional. Now, I'm very confused. I'm looking around, and I'm like, nobody was unprofessional that day, at least from what I had observed. And then they ask me to stay after the meeting. So now I'm really, now my red flags are going off, what happened? She, specifically Blake, alleged that I was unprofessional and treated her like a fan. I want to reiterate, I did not speak to her. I had no idea who she was. She hadn't done Gossip Girl yet. This was her breakout thing. Didn't even know her name. I was focused on the next show that I was supposed to help with production, which was a gaming show that we were doing, or a contest show. So I get dressed down for don't talk to talent, don't treat them like you're a fan. And I'm like, I literally, what? So I guess she went and complained that me specifically of all the interns treated her like a fan and she was so uncomfortable. Okay, I'm extremely weirded out. I actually cried on the train home. I used to take the train back to Long Island. I was mortified. Again, not only did I not treat her unprofessionally, but nobody to my experience that I saw spoke to her. This was our 8th show. We knew not to talk to talent. Everybody knew that. Okay, so I wipe it off, whatever. Years go by, I wind up working in a talent agency, and this is where working with directors and experiencing harassment in my own right comes into play. Harassment requires a factor of a power imbalance, okay? So someone lower than you can't really harass you because if you're her level, you can boot them off. She could have booted him off the project if he was legitimately harassing her. Harassment also doesn't occur when your husband is a frequent visitor and presence on set. He was ghostwriting scripts, which is shocking to me as someone who worked with writers and directors. I've never heard of somebody bringing their husband in to do rewrites. That was bizarre. But when you work with directors, typically they are the top dog. He was the bottom dog. It was her with all the leverage. She was the star on this show. So when I saw her interviews playing back, I'd actually kind of forgotten about what had happened when I worked for Fuse or interned at Fuse. I was immediately taken back to when she flipped the narrative on me and acted as if I did all these offensive things, when I want to reiterate I didn't speak to this girl. I did not speak to her. So this girl has a pattern of flipping the narrative, playing the victim, and then leveraging her status to actually bully and mistreat other people. So I've never heard of Justin Baldoni. I'm someone who, again, worked with Hollywood directors, never heard of this guy. This might have been his big break. And what I saw is her harassing him. Because again, usually it's the director that's the bigger dog on set. So yeah, they can harass their talent if they're like the much bigger name. But when you're the bigger name, you can have them kicked off set. As obvious as she got him kicked out of WME, which was her talent agency. For clarity, I worked at CAA, which is the competitor, but just as big. So she threw her weight around and was like, okay, me and Ryan want this guy booted out of the agency, which is something the bigger dog can do because they have the leverage. That's how Harvey Weinstein got away with everything, because he had the leverage and he would pick on no-name people or lesser than people, because who's going to believe them over him? You have more to lose if you don't take Ryan and Blake's side. So, having worked in PR, having worked on set, having grown up on set, and having personal experience with Blake doing this to me, she's the problem. There's a reason she feuds with all her co-stars. She had a feud with Anna Kendrick. She had a feud with Leighton Meester. Leighton Meester, who I wound up meeting years later, we were in Mommy and Me classes together. Completely different vibes. Very human, very demure, very nice. Unlike Big Britches Blake. So if you don't know about Hollywood and don't know about these people, allow me to color that experience in. She was the problem.
There you have it, guys. Let me also know your own thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about the situation? I personally think that, Blake was hell-bent on a personal ovation to Baldoni and took everything he did on the offense. You know when you just don't like someone, it's really hard to put your personal feelings to one side, right? Most of us can do that, but many don't and won't. Well, it's sad to say she falls into the later category. She is spiteful, and instead of, getting over herself, she saw what happened with the media backlash and victimized herself by attacking Justin. Because deep down, it's the kind of thing she would do. I also think that, someone of Justin's nature can sometimes rub cynical people up the wrong way. It seems genuinely good. From all the videos we've seen, it seems genuinely good, and maybe to the point that he can only hear himself. And that can stifle his ability to read social cues and listen for nuances. Well, I think that, that would have been largely contributed to Lively and subsequently her husband being annoyed by it. But to my core, the mat is in Martin, and she's not completely innocent to this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. As usual, the video starts from there, so I will see you in the comments. Do have an amazing day.